Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Breaking news in the NFL after 22 seasons. Maybe the greatest football player, the greatest quarterback, maybe one of the greatest athletes of our generation is calling it quits. Tom Brady. Now, I've got all my Michigan stuff on, and I didn't put it on just because of this. I was actually out working in the garage, taking care of a few things, putting up the outside wall to the studio. So I just look like I've been working because I have been. But when there's breaking news, we got to jump on it and we got to talk about it. And per Adam Schefter, and it sounds like Jeff Darlington, Tom Brady, after 22 seasons, multiple sources telling both of these guys that he is done. Hard to believe this is the year that he calls it quits, but you could tell kind of by the way he's been talking over the last couple of weeks that it did sound like he was getting closer and closer to being done. What an amazing career. Championships, records, all of it going to go down as probably the greatest quarterback of all time, in my opinion, and maybe one of just the best athletes of all time. When you just look across multiple sports, what he has accomplished. One of the greatest careers of any sports ever. Now, some of you are going to be super happy to see him go, and I get it. But just remember, you may never see anything like this ever again. So just take a moment to appreciate what he has done and what basically he brought to the table for 22 seasons. Now, what does this mean just from a football perspective? Well, his replacement, potentially Kyle Trask, was drafted last year by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And sitting behind Tom Brady, that's not that bad of a gig, and that is not that bad of a person to learn from. So he's been sitting there, and he has been learning. But here is where the biggest issues come into play, all right? Tom Brady's leaving. Offensive coordinator, Brian Leftwich, probably leaving. Defensive coordinator, Todd Bowles. I think he's had a few interviews. I'm not sure exactly where he's at in any of those processes. Chris Godwin, he's a free agent, and he's coming off an ACL injury. Antonio Brown, released just a couple of weeks ago, obviously, after that escapade that he had. Leonard Fournette is going to be a free agent. Ronald Jones is going to be a free agent. So this is a team that is going to see a ton of turnover on the offensive side of the ball this season. It is going to be a much different Tampa Bay team than what we have seen recently. Now, the good news for them is the NFC South might not be that competitive. So you have Tampa Bay, obviously. The Atlanta Falcons have been struggling. The Carolina Panthers really aren't in a position to win right now, but they're getting closer. Good defense. Do they have a quarterback? And finally, the New Orleans Saints. Okay, they find themselves in a world of mess without a head coach now, with really out a starting quarterback. And just a mess of a team that's like $77 million over the cap right now. So a lot of things happening in the NFC South. So can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers still win the division? Yeah, absolutely they can. So losing all these pieces necessarily does not doom their season in 2022. As far as from an individual player standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this team. Do they end up trying to bring back Chris Godwin? Potentially, because he's coming off the ACL injury, maybe he does do a one-year prove-it deal. Get back shot, he's healthy, hit free agency next year, and then really get his huge contract in. Maybe there's going to be teams willing to pay him regardless. I wouldn't be surprised if there are teams willing to pay him. But now that Tom Brady isn't going to be back and it's going to be Kyle Trask potentially instead, maybe Chris Godwin says, I'm going to take my chances elsewhere, and he goes elsewhere to maybe a different situation. What happens with Mike Evans? Well, Mike Evans could end up being the number one target on that team. And honestly, he's played with some quarterbacks in the past. Obviously, Jameis Winston has aired it out. He's played with Tom Brady. I'm not going to be that worried about Mike Evans. Maybe he takes a little bit ahead of a production, but again, it just depends on how ready Kyle Trask really is. The good news in all this is they have a great offensive line and will likely have a great offensive line again next year. And then who is going to be, this weird fuzz floating in front of me. At first, it didn't bother me, but then I noticed it on the camera to the side. So I'm like, if I notice it, y'all notice it too. So because of all this, that is what we are looking for right now. And I also just realized that my ticker at the bottom is not correct either. It says NFC Championship Preview. I forgot to change that. My bad, Headliner Nation. We're all over the place right now. But like I said, I wanted to get some breaking news out to you right away and have a talk with you about what this means for this Tampa Bay Bucs team, what we might expect going forward. But we've got an entire offseason to break down, free agency, the draft, all of it to see really what happens with this team. So I don't want to overreact right now, but I want to give you those quick hitting thoughts on what may or may not happen. I do believe now it is going to be very important for them to bring Leonard Fournette back, a guy that can really help the offense, that can run through the offense and knows the system well. Bring Leonard Fournette back. You'll have Kyle Trask. Mike Evans will still be there. Rob Gronkowski. What happens with Rob Gronkowski? Does he decide to call it quits as well? There's been some talk about, yes, I'm going to return next year regardless if Tom comes back or not. He's also said that if he were to walk away right now that he'd be fine with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Rob Gronkowski over the next coming weeks. But this is going to be a completely different team come 2022, and it's going to be exciting to see really what they do with this team over the next few months. But Headliner Nation, do me a favor, hit the like button down below and let me know in the comments what you think about Tom Brady retiring. Be respectful, ladies and gentlemen. You might not like him because he won so much, but you got to just respect greatness. You got to respect the career that he's had. So try to stay positive in the comments with all that. And do me a favor, if you're new here, subscribe to the Fantasy Headliners. Stick around for more off-season content coming your way. I've got a garage I got to keep cleaning, though, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and I got cars I got to get in here. So I am going to go back to doing that. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your Saturday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation.
I'm a headliner.